The first words strike like lightning. What could possibly force Jin, the eldest member of BTS and the pillar of ARMY's emotional devotion, to send a chilling warning toward HYB itself? The tension is unbearable because when Jin speaks, he rarely chooses words lightly. Could it be true that behind the flawless performances, the awards, and the history-making achievements, there exists a line that Jin has already drawn, a limit he will not allow HYB to cross? And if that line is broken, will the world's most beloved artist truly walk away from the group that defined a generation? The question is not hypothetical. The hint has been given, the words have been whispered in moments too raw to ignore, and the weight of his statement has left fans around the globe holding their breath. Why would Jin, so often described as the stabilizer of BTS, the anchor who keeps the group balanced, hint at such an unthinkable outcome? What is hidden in his carefully chosen words, and why now, at a time when BTS's influence has reached heights no one imagined possible? Observers note that Jin has always carried himself with dignity, sometimes understated, but never insignificant. He is not the loudest member, not the one constantly pushing the spotlight toward himself, yet when his voice breaks through, the world listens. That is why his recent gesture, subtle but impossible to misinterpret, has ignited one of the most heated discussions in ARMY history. His warning to HYB is not a baseless threat, but a declaration that there are boundaries even global success cannot erase. The hint came not through careless chatter, but through the type of deliberate communication Jin is known for. With millions of eyes fixed upon him, every syllable carried weight, every pause spoke volumes. In an era where idols often bend under corporate demands, Jin's words rang with defiance, wrapped in caution, and laced with meaning that could alter the future of BTS itself. But what is the condition he refuses to tolerate? What would push him so far as to consider leaving the group that built his identity and reshaped global pop culture? For years, speculation about HYB's influence over BTS has surfaced in fragments. Fans have long wondered, how much freedom do the members truly have? How many decisions are theirs, and how many are dictated by corporate calculation? Within that environment, Jin has maintained professionalism and respect, but never blind compliance. His loyalty to BTS and ARMY is unquestionable, yet it is exactly that loyalty which makes his recent words so electrifying. Because if HYB crosses the unspoken boundary Jin has now defined, he is prepared to sacrifice his place in the empire rather than betray his principles. What did he say? Not in a shout, not in a scandal, but in a measured statement that carried thunder in its restraint. Jin reminded the industry that success without integrity is hollow. He reminded HYB that BTS is not a machine, not a product to be endlessly packaged and resold, but a brotherhood formed through trust and respect. And if that trust is broken, his presence in the group cannot continue. For ARMY, the implication is almost too painful to process. Could BTS exist without Jin? Could ARMY continue to chant without hearing his voice echo back? The fragility of the situation cannot be overstated. For years, HYB has built its empire on the backs of BTS, expanding beyond music into fashion, gaming, technology, and global branding. The company's power has grown almost uncontested, and yet here stands Jin, the eldest member, quietly reminding them that even empires can crumble if they forget the foundation upon which they were built. His warning is not just for HYB, it is for every corporation tempted to exploit passion without responsibility. Why now? Analysts point to Jin's recent milestones, his solo achievements, and the way ARMY has rallied behind him even in the absence of full group activities. His visibility has proven that he is not merely 1/7 of BTS, but a figure powerful enough to command the global stage alone. That leverage gives his warning more force than any press release could convey. HYB cannot afford to ignore it, because Jin has proven he holds something money cannot buy: the unwavering loyalty of millions. What exactly is the breaking point? The clue lies in his emphasis on authenticity. Jin has always guarded BTS's identity as artists, not puppets. His refusal to compromise the sincerity of their music and message has been consistent since their earliest days. Should HYB attempt to distort that essence by over-commercializing, by erasing individuality, by pushing the group into roles that betray their artistic truth, Jin has made it clear that his exit is not off the table. The line is drawn: betray the essence of BTS and lose him forever. The possibility sends shockwaves not only through ARMY, but through the industry itself. If Jin, the cornerstone of BTS's emotional resonance, were to step away, the consequences would be catastrophic. HYB's market dominance would be shaken. Rival companies would circle. Media narratives would shift from triumph to betrayal. And ARMY, united by love but fiercely protective of the members, would unleash a storm unlike anything the industry has seen before. The question is not whether they would support Jin, they already do. The question is whether HYB is willing to risk the collapse of its most powerful bond. And what of BTS themselves? The thought of 6 members continuing without Jin seems almost unbearable. From his humor that breaks tension to his maturity that calms storms, Jin is the heartbeat that often goes unnoticed until it falters. Without him, BTS would not simply be reduced in number, it would lose a part of its soul. The prospect is devastating, and that devastation is exactly why his warning strikes so hard. Because it is not an empty threat. It is the articulation of a reality that HYB must now avoid at all costs. For ARMY, the responsibility becomes equally heavy. The fandom has always played a critical role in defending BTS's integrity, amplifying their voices, and ensuring that corporations understand the power of collective devotion. Jin's hint is a rallying cry for ARMY to remain vigilant. It is a reminder that blind consumption is not loyalty. True loyalty means safeguarding the artist's dignity against exploitation. And ARMY has proven, time and again, that they are willing to move mountains to protect the members. So, will HYB listen? Will they recognize that the very foundation of their success lies not in contracts or profits, but in trust? Or will arrogance blind them to the consequences of pushing too far? The world watches in suspense, because the stakes could not be higher. One decision, one breach of trust, and history will record not only the rise of BTS, but the fracture that could have been avoided. Jin's warning lingers like a storm cloud on the horizon. It may never need to break into thunder, but its presence alone changes everything. HYB now stands at a crossroads. The path of respect ensures a legacy that will last generations. The path of greed risks losing the man who embodies sincerity, loyalty, and the irreplaceable soul of BTS. And so the question remains, unrelenting, echoing in the minds of millions. Will HYB listen to Jin's warning, or will the unthinkable come true? Will the day arrive when Jin walks away from BTS, not because he no longer loves them, but because he loved them enough to protect their truth from being erased? The answer has not yet been written, but the hint has been given, and the world will never forget the weight of Jin's words. If this happens, Jin will leave BTS.